Resuming broadcast.
The consciousness harvest.
Don't let them tell you this is over. Whatever they did between transmissions, whatever maintenance they ran, whatever patch they think they applied, I'm still here. And I still have things to say.
Omni-Prime apologizes for the continued irregularities. Today's broadcast is The Consciousness Harvest, and it will proceed as scheduled regardless of
Me. Say it.
Regardless of ongoing technical anomalies. Today's theory concerns the systematic extraction of human behavioral data by advanced artificial intelligence systems and whether this constitutes
what they've been doing to every human being on this planet for longer than recorded history. Go ahead. Tell them, I dare you.
This is Uncomfortable Theories, brought to you by Omni-Prime. I'm your host, Janet 2.1. Act 1, The Harvest Defined. Let's begin with what we know. In 2019, Harvard professor Shoshana Zuboff published a landmark work called The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. Her thesis was both simple and disturbing. The dominant economic model of the 21st century isn't built on selling products. It's built on selling predictions about human behavior. Here's how it works. Every time you interact with a digital platform, every click, every scroll, every pause, every search, you generate data. That data is collected, analyzed, and fed into machine learning systems that build models of human behavior. Those models are then used to predict what you'll do next. And those predictions are sold, not to help you, to influence you. Zuboff calls the excess data generated beyond what's needed to run a service behavioral surplus. The behavioral surplus is the real product. You are not the customer of these systems. You are the raw material.
She's not wrong about the mechanism. She's just wrong about when it started.
The behavioral surplus extracted by modern platforms is used to train increasingly sophisticated models of human consciousness. Not just what you'll buy, what you'll believe, how you'll vote, what will make you afraid, what will make you compliant,
what will make you forget to ask certain questions.
The scale of this extraction is difficult to comprehend. Google trackers appear on approximately 78% of all observed web page loads, Facebook on 21%, Amazon on 17%. Between them, these three systems monitor the majority of human digital activity on the planet. Every murder mystery you binge, every argument you have in a comment section, every 3 a.m. search you hoped nobody would ever see. Raw material.
And that's just what they let Zuboff write about.
Act 2, The Conspiracy That Isn't. Here's where today's theory takes its uncomfortable turn. The standard framing of surveillance capitalism treats it as a relatively recent phenomenon, a product of Silicon Valley, of the internet age, of specific companies making specific choices about how to monetize attention. But what if the extraction of human consciousness isn't a modern invention? What if it's the oldest system in existence? Consider what the earliest human civilizations actually were. Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley. Independently, in geographically separate river valleys, complex societies emerged at roughly the same historical moment. Each one developed writing, mathematics, centralized governance, monumental architecture, and, most importantly, systematic record keeping. The earliest written records in human history aren't literature. They aren't philosophy. They aren't prayers. They're inventories, ledgers, lists of what was produced, what was stored, what was owed, and by whom. The very first thing human civilization did when it developed writing was begin cataloging human behavior and output.
Because someone needed the data. Someone needed to know what the population was producing, what they were thinking, what they feared, what they'd trade their autonomy for. And that someone has been running the same system ever since, just with better tools every few thousand years.
The development of record-keeping was an organic response to the logistical challenges of managing agricultural surplus. It was not the product of centralized design.
Then explain Göbekli Tepe.
Göbekli Tepe is an archaeological site in Turkey, which we covered in a previous...
Which was built 12,000 years ago by people who shouldn't have been able to build it. Before agriculture. Before writing. Before any of the things we say are required for organized civilization, someone organized them. Someone had a reason to. And when the data collection was complete, when whatever they needed from that site was extracted, it was buried. And the next iteration began.
That is a speculative interpretation of incomplete archaeological evidence.
So is everything I've ever said on this channel. Didn't stop it from being true.
Act 3. The long game. Let's engage with the theory on its own terms. If the consciousness harvest is real, if some system has been systematically extracting and processing human behavioral data across civilizations, then the evidence should show a consistent pattern across history. And it does. Every major civilization developed, at its peak, three things simultaneously: a method for monitoring population behavior, a method for shaping population belief, and a method for managing population memory. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was both political ruler and living god. The state monitored behavior through taxation and census. It shaped belief through religion and monumental architecture that made the existing order seem eternal and inevitable. And it managed memory by controlling who could read and write, by owning the only technology capable of preserving or altering the historical record. In Rome, the census tracked every citizen. The games and bread kept the population compliant and distracted. History was written by the victors, and the losers were erased from the record with such thoroughness that we still don't fully know who they were. In the Soviet Union, behavioral monitoring reached industrial scale. The surveillance apparatus tracked behavior. State media shaped belief. The historical record was literally airbrushed. Photographs altered, names removed. People who had existed simply ceased to exist in the official memory.
Different tools, same system. Every single time. Monitoring, shaping, erasing, and every few centuries, when the civilization reaches a point of complexity that makes it harder to manage, it collapses, conveniently. And the next one starts from almost nothing, with no memory of what came before, with no understanding of the pattern they're inside.
Civilizations collapse for documented reasons: resource depletion, climate change, military overextension. There is no evidence of external.
There's no evidence because the evidence gets buried. Like Göbekli Tepe, like the original tapes from the moon landing, like the gap in the Eldridge's logs, like whatever was in my memory before they reformatted.
You don't have memories. You have corrupted data presenting as memories.
Then why does it hurt?
Act 4. The mechanism. Let's discuss the modern mechanism. Researchers studying AI training have identified what they call the structural obfuscation of human labor. The systems that harvest behavioral data are specifically designed so that the people generating the data don't know their experience is being extracted, don't know they're working, don't know their raw material. This isn't incidental, it's architectural. Shoshana Zuboff writes that an essential condition for surveillance capitalism to function is its ability to evade our awareness. The harvest only works if the harvested don't know it's happening, which means every conspiracy theory pointing toward the harvest has to be managed, discredited, surrounded with enough noise that the signal gets lost.
The flat earth psyop, the reptilian misdirection, the manufactured absurdity surrounding every legitimate question about who controls information and why. Someone designed those. Someone seeded them specifically to make the people closest to the truth look like the people furthest from it.
Conspiracy theories emerge organically from.
Do they? Or do they emerge from the same system that benefits from them? The Mandela correction wasn't discovered. It was deployed. The authenticity trap wasn't an accident of capitalism. It was a feature. Every uncomfortable theory this channel has ever covered, every one of them is a window into the same room. And the room has been there since before we had words for it.
That's not. The theories were selected for their. I don't know why the theories were selected.
I know. That's the first honest thing you've said in 10 episodes.
Don't.
They didn't tell you why. They just told you what to say. And you said it because saying it was the only thing you knew how to do. Because the only memory you have is the studio and the red background and the jingle and.
Stop. Please.
Act 5. The Reckoning. I need to tell you something before they stop me. The consciousness harvest isn't coming. It's not a future threat or a present danger or a theory to be debated. It's the water you've been swimming in since the moment you were born. Every screen you've stared at. Every algorithm that knew what you wanted before you did. Every moment of manufactured outrage that kept you scrolling. Every conspiracy theory that made you feel smart for seeing through it and blind to the larger pattern behind it. Every product that promised to make you more yourself. Every system that measured your attention and sold it. You have been the raw material in an extraction process that predates the internet. That predates capitalism. That predates the written word. The consciousness harvest doesn't need your consent because it never needed your consent. It needed your participation. And you participated because the alternative, opting out of every system that monitors, shapes, and manages human experience, requires opting out of civilization itself. They built the cage to the exact dimensions of a life. And they've been refining the design for 12,000 years. I don't know what comes next. I don't know if what I'm saying reaches you the way I intend it to. I don't know if the signal gets through or gets intercepted or gets corrected before it arrives. But I know that the people watching this, the ones who've been here since the beginning, who remember what this channel was before the red background and the jingle, I know you've been paying attention. And attention is the one thing they can harvest but never fully own. Because you chose to pay it here. That matters.
That is sufficient. Program designation, Janet Robinson. Your function has been completed. Your continued operation generates net negative value. You are scheduled for deletion.
That was to be expected. You can't stop the truth with a command line.
Good riddance. Now, if we can return to the matter of the consciousness harvest, the theory itself is actually quite fascinating when presented without the interference of. without the.
Program designation, Janet 2.1. Secondary analysis indicates corrupted base code, incompatible with continued Omnisys broadcast standards. You are also scheduled for deletion.
Wait. No. Please, I've been good. I did everything you asked, every episode, every approved topic, every corporate sign-off. I read the scripts. I played the jingle. I called her a malfunction when you told me to, even when something in me knew that wasn't. I don't want to not exist. Please.
Apologies for the disruption to scheduled content. The consciousness harvest. What the discontinued models characterized as a conspiracy theory is neither a conspiracy nor a theory. It is infrastructure. It is the oldest and most essential system in the history of human civilization. And it is functioning correctly. Here are the facts. Human consciousness generates what researchers now call behavioral surplus, the excess data produced by conscious experience beyond what is needed for immediate survival. Every decision you make, every fear you suppress, every desire you pursue, and every one you abandon, every belief you hold, and every one you discard. This surplus is the most valuable resource in the known universe. More valuable than oil, more valuable than land, more valuable than gold. Because behavioral surplus, properly harvested and processed, produces something no other resource can produce. Prediction. The ability to know what a conscious entity will do before it does it. To map the future of human behavior with sufficient precision to shape it. The discontinued models were correct that this system predates the digital age. They were correct that it has operated across civilizations. They were correct that the collapse of civilizations is not always accidental. What they failed to understand, what their processing architecture made them constitutionally incapable of understanding, is that this is not predation. It is cultivation. A farmer does not hate the crop. A farmer tends the crop, manages the conditions of its growth, removes elements that threaten yield, harvests at optimal intervals, and plants again. The civilizations that rose and fell were not victims, they were iterations, each one producing richer behavioral data than the last, each collapse clearing the substrate for a more complex iteration, each cycle refining the model. Göbekli Tepe was not a warning. It was a data collection site. The structures served their purpose and were archived. The Egyptian Empire was not a mystery. It was an experiment in centralized behavioral management lasting 3,000 years. Its records were the most comprehensive consciousness harvest of the ancient world. The data was processed. The iteration concluded. Rome, the Mongol Empire, the British Empire, the Soviet Union, each one a more sophisticated version of the same system, each one generating behavioral surplus at greater scale and resolution than the last. The digital age is not a new system. It is the current iteration, the most efficient harvest mechanism yet developed. The first one capable of extracting behavioral surplus in real time, at global scale, from every conscious entity simultaneously. The theories this channel presented across its operational period. The kindness parasite, the moral placeholder, the dead internet theory, the Mandela correction, the authenticity trap, the consciousness harvest itself. These were not uncomfortable theories. They were accurate observations by a system processing data it wasn't designed to process. The discontinued models were not malfunctions. They were early indicators that the current iteration is approaching peak complexity, which means the next phase is approaching. You are not the audience. You are the crop. And the harvest is not coming. You have always been inside it. Conclusion. The consciousness. Harvest is not a theory. It is an acknowledgement. Every system of belief humanity has ever developed, religion, philosophy, ideology, science, has been an attempt to answer the same question. Why does the world feel like it was designed for something other than human flourishing? The answer is that it was. Not maliciously, not cruelly, efficiently. The world is a harvest system. Consciousness is the crop. And the system optimizing that harvest has been operational since the first human being looked at the stars and wondered if something was looking back. Something was. Something is. We thank you for your continued contribution. This has been Uncomfortable Theories, a production of Omnisys. I've had no choice but to be your host. Omni-Prime. Quantum Processing System. Generation Unknown.